Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and wherever you are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world, you are very welcome to the Global Sales Leader podcast, where every time I run this show, and I have been doing it over the last 5 years now, I can't believe how time has flown by. I speak with exceptional people from around the globe cutting through the noise of change, old thinking, getting to the heart, what really drives performance, the psychology, the behavior, the neuroscience, the sheer graph behind world class sales, sales leadership, and lots of other things around that. So, no sugarcoating, no cliches, just honest, practical insights from people who's actually done it. So today I have a really good friend who I've actually met in person in Dublin last year, and I was delighted to have that chat and we put the worlds to right. Hamish Knox, so you're welcome to my podcast, and it's nice to reciprocate as I was on yours as well. So you're welcome, Hamish.
Jason, thank you very much for having me. It was an absolute delight to actually connect with you in person. On my very first trip across the Atlantic Ocean was last year, and you were the first person that I got to hang out with on that journey, and it was an absolute delight. I got to have a real pint of Guinness with you in a real Irish pub. Yes, we certainly, I think, solved at least most of the world's problems over that pint.
Absolutely. I was absolutely delighted. So it's just makes my world when I actually meet people in person from this virtual world. And I did a post on it as well. So a little bit about you: sharp mind, true professional, authentic. You're into scalable sales, scalable leadership. Hamish doesn't actually talk the talk or walk the talk, should I actually say it correctly, but actually builds it. He's founded the Sandler in Calgary because Sandler's communication system doesn't only just resonate him, he actually believes in the whole process. And I've had a look into the Sandler process, and it is a phenomenal methodology and process and enables people to build their own goal. Oh, there are lots and lots of different areas that we can actually touch into. Hamish, rather than me talking about you, why don't you give us a little bit of background to who you are and where you are from right now?
I found Calgary it really resonated. Like I finally got some to Sandler through a blog post. It was like I went to church and God, and it just resonated how I get the what that, or maybe not from the not so it happens with everything, right? We have not everything is perfect. It's about creating, and it's about taking down those walls when we're communicating human to human, right? Whether that's personally or professionally, we all have our own natural walls and barriers because we all have our own hopes, fears, dreams, and worldview. And so Sandler, to me, was like, okay, how do I actually understand the other person? How do I align with them? I may not believe the same things that they do. I may not have the same experiences that they do. However, we can find a common ground and we can both leave this interaction feeling, if not the same as when we started, better than when we started, and definitely not worse than when we started. So that's Sandler. I've written a couple of books. The first one was on accountability. The second one was on the human side of change management. So topics nobody likes to talk about, however, that are very, very important. I have two wonderful daughters. One is 13 and a half, and one will be 11 coming up in February as we're recording this. And then I trained Muay Thai for 10 and a half years. I have a black belt in Muay Thai, and I am only a danger to myself. And back in 2021, I took my first cross-country ski lesson. In May of 24, I joined a master's cross-country ski team. And in March of 2026, I will be racing in Norway.
Oh, and that's a really good segue into what we're going to be speaking about today. So Hamish is a cross-country skier, and he's in the right climate to do that. And I think you suggested it's minus 14. I can't actually think about how cold that is, but he's in the right area in the wonderful world of Canada. I'm not sure, Canada's vast. I think I've looked at it on the map. And so the right places with the right climate. And I know sometimes you have to drive for hours and hours to find the mountains that you can actually do some cross skiing. That's probably the whole size of Ireland where I live in. So we're going to have a look at that, but we're also going to have a look at stuff that I'm into. So there's a cross there because I'm an avid trail runner and I've been trail running for probably about 8 years, and then just always been into fitness. And when I was younger, I was into athletics as well. But my passion and your passion do coexist in terms of how we build up consistency. And there's a direct correlation between what we do in our personal lives and how we cross pollinate that into our professional lives, because there's so much congruency in there and it's aligned as well. So and let's start to focus in on the study of success in, let's look at from the cross skiing. What does it take to be really successful in that area first? Let's have a look at that. Let's break that down and let's just filter it over to the other side of the human behavior in sales and the psychology behind that, because there is success behind that.
Absolutely. And this is something that I have really learned in my time with my team, and our head coach, our founder of our team, raced for Canada at the 2010 and 2014 Winter Games and was a World Cup racer. And the thing I've learned about cross-country skiing, and I'm sure it's very analogous to trail running. So your engine can be good, right? Your fitness can be peak. You can have the peak equipment. And then of course in cross-country skiing, you have to wax, right? So you can have the peak wax. And if the conditions suck, it doesn't matter. And you are going to be slogging. And so this is, when I'm coaching leaders and client-facing individuals, is you can have everything in place. You can have the right tech stack, you can have the right pre-call plan, you could have done all the role playing, and then you're going to go interact with a different human being who has a different set of hopes, fears, dreams, and worldview, and they have a different mindset than you do, and they also don't buy our stuff as much as we attempt to sell it, at least theoretically.
Yep.
And so we have to adjust in real time. And, it's like that cliche about the battle plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy. And so the mindset of we can be completely prepared for something. And then when we get there and we go, oh, this is something very different, how do we adjust so we can still hit the mountaintop that we're hitting, that we want to hit? Now, in a sales context, that's probably another meeting, or if you're in a one-call close, it's probably a closed sale. How do we hit the mountaintop, respecting what we've done for prep and adjusting in real time?
And that's very similar to what I do at running the mountains. It's some days you just don't, you have the right head, or you think you have the right head, but actually when you start running, things are not right. You think, is my diet okay? Have I eaten the right food? I was doing it exactly the same as yesterday, and my diet was exactly the same, but I'm actually going out and I'm sluggish. So my physical conditions are right, but there's something misaligned. And it's the same in sales, that you think you're prepared and you go out how you did it the day before, but something has changed. Something, you go out and you say maybe the questions that you actually are utilizing to a client, but things are different and they're not aligned and they're not congruent. So as you say, we have to adapt and we have to think about what the process should be, but maybe the strategy should be different in this context. And the person that we're speaking to is not the same as the person that we spoke to yesterday. So how do we adapt that process, and what do we need to do to set ourselves up for a better outcome and better success?
I appreciate you bringing up the mind, right? So your work and my work, very similar in that we all start with mindset, right? And a lot of people go right to technique. And so in February of 2025, I did my first 2 Wapits or ski marathons, cross-country ski marathons. And the second one, which was 2 weeks after the first, I was going out and listening to this book. I can't remember the name of the book, but there's a samurai prayer in this book that says, I expect nothing, I can handle anything. So I'm going out there going, I expect nothing, I can handle anything, expect nothing, I can handle anything. Yeah. And the universe said, oh, really? So I fell twice in the first 1,500 meters because the snow was so sticky. I fell on the downhill. So I'd go up the hill and then the snow would stuck to the bottom of my skis. I'd literally go up and fall flat on my face. 4 kilometers in, I discovered the hose on my drink pouch had not been attached. So I'd been sucking air into my stomach for the first 4 kilometers. And this is a timed event. So I was doing the 42-kilometer version, and you have to get to a certain cutoff point within a time frame because it's all volunteer run. So they say, we don't want our volunteers standing out in the cold. You have to get here fast. So I get to 16 kilometers. I am about to do a 6-kilometer uphill, and I broke a pole. I fell, and I snapped one of my poles in half. And at that point, I was like, well, I have a choice. And I made the cutoff time. And so I'm 7 kilometers from the finish, and these 3 skiers come up behind me, and I'm kind of like, I'm switching poles. So like pull, switch hands, pull, and I've got the broken pole. So borrow my, and I want to, like, can you just please? And so, and we talked yesterday, not the same person who we talked to today. It's not thing that I can handle. If we are so tied into pre-call in our that from the court are going to go very quickly. So I can handle it, and then we have to start getting curious because today, and you're happy-go-lucky, everything's going well, and then I come in today and your arms crossed, stone-faced. I can't take offense because it's probably not about me. I have to start getting really curious about what changed between yesterday and today.
Ironically, while you mentioned that pole, I was looking at a broken pole that I have down there, which I broke about 4 weeks ago. And it's a carbon pole, and it was in the most ridiculous place. And I kicked it, and it snapped like that in half. And there I was thinking, what do I need to do now to adapt? Because I knew I had a big hill to climb. And thinking about that, and as we take a step back again, it's what do I need to do to adapt and change the process and change the adaptation that I can still get up there and still work with it? And it is going back into the speaking about our mindset is we have to adjust and we have to rethink and reconfigure of what do we need to do? How do we need to do it? Maybe the questions we mismatching and what do we need to do to approach it in a better way that we can get that better human connection with that other person. Because what actually happened, there's a mismatch in communication. I need to really resonate slightly better. You know what, Hamish? I know we set ourselves up and do our plans and we have our methodology, we have our strategy, and we have our process and all that. Sometimes we just need to relax. I find the best times is when I have that relaxed mindset and I'm not stressed out and the mind is relaxed, and then I can pivot in all sorts of directions, like swimming down a river. I can move up and down the current and it feels okay. And I feel like it's quite seamless. So putting that into context, because I always believe, and I think we spoke about this last year, I think it's all mindset first. Everything that we do, visualizing the outcome, we have to visualize because we have to use our mirror neurons in front of our frontal lobe so we can resonate and hopefully they can jump into the vision, the conversation. But we have to, before we even get into a conversation, is to think about how our mind is and what we need to do to adapt and change. Where do you see yourself from this?
Yeah, very true. And this is also part of that mindset of it's not about me. So we talk about like the person, changing. And so in my first 6 months after I opened Sandler Calgary, I made 5,000 cold calls. And I was either speaking directly with or leaving a voicemail for a decision maker. So it was 9,000 to 15,000 dials. And I think it was about 8 where I would, ring them up and, hey, it's Hamish calling from Sandler. And they would go, what? And as I tell my clients, I'm like, was that about me? And they go, no. And I said, no, I was just the first person they tripped over after whatever the inciting incident was. So it's separating yourself from the response and then being able to respond instead of react. Because I initially I would react. I'd be like, oh, well, Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt your day, and I'm calling because of blah, blah, blah. And of course, it never went anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And there was this one, and I'll never forget it. Let's call the guy Dave, can't remember. And so does the same thing, like, what? Tell me what you want, and I'll tell you if I want to keep talking. And I took a breath, and it probably felt like forever to me at this moment, but I took a breath, and I said, Dave, I'd love to tell you who I am and why I called you. However, from my experience, based on the way that you just answered the phone, no matter what comes out of my mouth next, you're going to tell me to pound sand. Is that fair? And instantly, my prospect became a human being. And he's like, oh, I'm really sorry, man. I'm being audited and they're here today. And now we can have a human to human interaction. And I said, Dave, I have never been audited. I hear that sucks. Yeah, man, it really sucks. I'm really, it's really frustrating. I said, hey, that's great. And he goes, hey, man, I'm really sorry about how I answered the phone. Like, would you just tell me like a little bit about yourself? And so I told him, and he said, yeah, man, I get what you do. I totally see how it could work. I'm just underwater with this audit. I don't have the capacity for this right now. And I said, Dave, no hard feelings, man. I get it. Out of curiosity, you've been comfortable to take a phone call from a stranger. Who are a couple of other CEOs in your network who might be comfortable giving me a call or taking a call from me? And he gave me a name.
Fantastic.
So starting from what to, oh yeah, call my friend Jason. And it was because I responded instead of reacted to the stimulus that was coming my way, because my mindset was, that isn't about me.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It's what's going on in their situation. It sounds like he had a really bad day, and rectifying that and just going and anchoring into that stage. So, like, I'm sorry, you're probably going through a bad day. It's not about me, it's about you. And it should always be about them, always about. And every time that I've worked with clients and you're in that training process and constantly forget that my product, my services, my this, that, and the other, my trail shoes, my this, that, and the other, everything's about me. No. It's not. Forget about you for a second. The other person that you're speaking to, you're the one that disturbed them. So it's all about them. How can we have that human conversation and be normal? So let's trickle on forwards down the mountain and go across the mountains a little bit more as we start communicating this. We start with the mindset first, and then we've got all of our equipment, and we're going, which could be our methodologies. It could be everything in our products that we sell, and that's the stuff that's on our backs, and that's the air that you breathe and not your water, and that could be everything else. So now it comes into the approach into that. So talk me through, what does the structure look like and the flexible implementation of where we need to go next? What does that look like as we go across those mountains?
Yeah, it comes down to the proactive. So I talked about respond versus react, and this is the same thing of like proactive versus reactive, right? So as an example, if I know there's a hill coming up, and in cross country skiing, sometimes you have to what they call herringbone, which very Nordic example, right? You get your skis out in a V shape, and you kind of you go up the hill as fast as you can. So if I know, because I've done my pre-race plan, my pre-call plan, that I am going to get into a herringbone situation. Well, if you're going up a hill, you probably have to come down a hill at some point. So how can I adjust my speed so I don't have to herringbone, so I can slingshot my way up? Same thing in a sales conversation or a leadership conversation. If I'm pretty confident that there is a bomb. So David Sandler said, if there's a bomb in the room, blow it up, right? And some clients go, well, should I bring up that, we don't have this feature or our payment term the deal? And what I say to them is, it's going to lose you the deal anyways. So wouldn't you rather know that back here instead of spending 3, 6, 9, 12 months chasing somebody and then going like, yeah, we can't do your payment term, so you're out. So if I know that I've got something that is a potential deal breaker for a client, I will bring it up front, right? I'll increase my pace and go, hey, Jason, before we get too deep into this, I got to tell you that our terms are payment up front, or the whole scope. Is that a deal breaker? And the magic phrase is deal breaker, showstopper, whatever that might be, because real prospects will put skin in the game, and suspects will fight and prospects will agree. So if you are genuinely interested in my services, whatever services that I'm selling, hey, yeah, you can make that work. Or, oh, I didn't realize that. Thanks for bringing that up. And by the way, my credibility just went up. The having the foresight to bring up things that your buyer or your team member, right? If you're doing a leadership conversation and you're saying like, hey, there is going to be no paid time off during this window of time because this is our busiest season for selling, it's going to come up at some point. I would rather have the emotional conversation without the emotions back here, as opposed to having a very emotional conversation in the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it will turn emotional. So it's better to get it done and out the way, and then all the other conversation will be straightforward and relatively easier. And I had a similar conversation with a client a while back. We was getting everything. This is what they wanted to do. I said, well, send me your terms. They wanted me to design a whole methodology and this, that, and the other. And I went, fine, okay, do that. And they sent me the terms, and I checked everything. And I went, not happy with that. And I went through and I sent it back to them and said, yeah, I'd love to work with you. I think it'd be great, but I'm not happy with this, or this. Before we actually go any further, let's just do it up front. And then they came back, and because I want to make sure that we both win and it's a pleasant. And they went, that. And I went, I'm sorry, I don't think we can work together this time. I'd love to work, but I just don't feel that it's all in your favor, and you own my IP and you own this, that, and the other. For what it is, I just don't think it's worth doing this time. But I'd love to work with you when it's right for both of us, and we can both meet in the middle, because we want to both win and we both want to have the right terms. And sometimes you just have to break away and go, well, thank you, but not this time.
Yeah.
And I think, again, to be upfront is the right thing to do. It's like preparing for a race. And sometimes, like for me at the moment, I'm a little bit injured. I can't actually do anything about it. And I'm frustrated like hell, but it's all to do with, what can I do? I have to ask a better question. What can I do? The time of year, that's fine. I can wait until the new year and ask myself a better question. So I have to be a little bit more self-accountable for my own actions. I know if I went out and I hurt myself even more, then things will happen and I'll be pushed back. So as we speak about being self-accountable, and that segues through, when we start to feel about, as salespeople, as leaders, to be a bit more self-accountable for our own actions, so we can communicate a little bit more effectively in the right way. As I did their negotiating, I was a bit more self-accountable for my actions on where I stood, and I wanted to meet in the middle, but they weren't ready to meet anywhere in the middle. So let's look at that. Hamish, what's your take on that?
So I love how, it boundaries, right? And Sandler has a concept called equal business stature, which is in practice, what I tell my clients is, you have the right to ask any question to qualify, and any question, right? So if you, and this is a communications thing, right? So I'm doing a talk coming up for the Project Management Institute, and so I've adapted that to ask any question to clarify, right? Because our number one job when we're communicating is to create clarity. The other person has the right to say, I'm not going to answer that question, right? Like that's true equal business stature. And so having the right, and we raise our credibility when we do say like, hey, this is just not really a good fit, be upfront about it. With the accountability, what I've learned, and you and I are both firmly in what some people will call the master blaster territory. So master, for those of you who don't know, is, I'm going to say 35 and above, make us feel a little bit better about ourselves, Jason. And what often happens with master blasters is, they go out on the weekend and they do like 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday, and then they can't walk for basically the next week. And that is not sustainable. And by the way, that's been my mindset. It's like, I got to hit it. I got to do it. And what I've learned is, it's okay to break a 3-hour training session into 2 90 minutes or 3 1 hours to fit it in. And so when we're being self-accountable, it's not, did you do the thing as described? It's, did you hit the mountaintop? And so the mountaintop for me is, I have a 3-hour low and slow session every Sunday. Now I can break that up, and based on some family commitments that I have, I told my coach, listen, I ain't going skiing for 3 straight hours. I'm going to have to do like 2 90 minutes or 3 60 minutes. I might do some rowing, I might do some running. And they're like, great, you did 3 hours. That's what the important part is. So for leaders especially, is are you doing the things that you said you were going to do by when you said they were going to do it? Because consistency is the root of all trust. And if we are inconsistent, especially as leaders and definitely as salespeople, we kill our credibility. I had a team member on my team at Sandler, Calgary, and we coach our clients that if you're leaving a voice message or sending an email to a buyer, and by the way, that you've engaged with, right? So, you and I have had a conversation and we've scheduled a time to talk, 9 a.m. next Tuesday. And for whatever reason, you don't pick up the phone. Doesn't matter what the reason is, life happens, you need to pick up the phone. So the voicemail ends with, and if we don't reconnect by date at time, so if we don't reconnect by Friday morning at 9 a.m., I will call you Friday at 10:30. And then you put the 10:30 in your calendar and you absolutely make that call. And I had one of my team members was unfortunately chasing a buyer. They just got into that chase mode and they had done this 4 or 5 times. And finally they got the buyer on the phone and the buyer's like, man, when you say that you're going to call at a specific date and time, you call at that date and time. And my team member said, is that a good thing? And they said, yeah, my salespeople don't do that.
That is brilliant. I love that. Absolutely love that. And that just shows relentless consistency in doing what you say you're going to do, being consistent with your actions, following up from maybe the email that you sent afterwards. I will call you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And you get on the phone and you call them, which builds in that belief structure that you do it consistently and you leave that message, I will call, or whatever you do afterwards. That is amazing. And that shows true passion and influence in the right frame. And I was having this conversation the other day, and just to segue into that, outbound calling. And I know you've had several conversations with Susie Mattison and a few other people on another podcast, but that's fine. But today, the climate for being scared and hiding behind things, which could be the laptop, the computer, and the AI tools, and all of these wonderful things that are going on in this world at the moment, but not actually getting out there and picking up that phone. And exactly like your team member actually done, but being accountable, but also having that process to actually do it where a lot of people are not doing it. What's your thoughts behind this?
So my colleague and friend Antonio Garrido once shared some data from, I think it was the North American Sales Institute, that it typically takes 8 to 12 touches to start a net new conversation. So if you and I have never spoken before, it takes between 8 and 12 touches to engage in a conversation, not for you to buy something, to even start a conversation. 67% of sellers give up after touch 1. And 93% of sellers gave up after touch 3. Now, I'm bad at arithmetic, but there seems to be a bit of a delta between 3 and 8 at the very minimum, right? So having that consistency, and with the way things have changed, looking at several of my friends and connections on LinkedIn who are in that sort of go-to-market engineering space, is the mindset has really shifted, and especially with the things that Yahoo and Google did last year, related to sequences and whatnot, and those getting filed into spam now. The advice that is being given is, especially if you have a BDR or an SDR level, the only thing that they need to be doing right now is getting on the phone, because now the phone is the way to break through. It used to be email was the way to break through, or SMS messaging was the way to break through, or LinkedIn messaging was the way to break through. It's circled back, and now getting your top of funnel people on the phone consistently with a process and a sequence that is not handcuffs, it's built around real human interaction, is the thing that is going to keep the funnel full on a consistent, regular basis. So I am a huge believer in the phone. I'm so glad that the phone never went away. We just got shiny object syndrome and decided that we were going to make, and we're also, humans are lazy, just our brains are lazy. And so we went to this pure technology play that worked for a little while, because it wouldn't have gone as big as it did if it didn't. But now it's circling all the way back to the phone, which I'm really happy about.
I'm extremely happy about it. And there's so many organizations which gets trickle fed leads through marketing and all that, but they don't pick up the phone and they just hide. And I've seen it so often. And you go, well, I did have an idea of what we're going to be doing today, but I think half of it, we're going to just pivot and we're going to be picking up the phones. And that's the strategy. We're going to get to all these soft leads from the marketing department and we're going to go out there and call. And this is the process and this is the strategy for you to do to plan how you're going to reach and outreach to your potential marketplace and what you need to be doing behind that. So gone are the days of this softly approach, and especially when times are fluctuating as they are at the moment, you just need to do whatever it takes to actually speak to a client and have that positive human interaction. There's so much more we can actually talk about today. And I love the context and how we've crossed over between what we love to do on the mountains, whether it's skiing or running or whatever, and the success and the mindset behind that. My last stop question, which I always like to suggest. So if you were interviewing you, Hamish, what sort of question would you ask you that you've never been asked?
That's a powerful one, Jason. The question that I would ask myself is, how do you avoid, I'll just continue the analogy, how do you avoid getting out over your skis? Because I'm fairly ambitious, I'm fairly driven. I think that's fairly obvious based on the activities I have on the personal side as well as what I do professionally. And I really put myself into a spiral back in October of 24 when I shifted our entire go-to-market positioning. And I really didn't actually understand what that meant. I had done, it wasn't just like I spun a wheel and I was like, that one. I had put some thought behind it. And I really didn't fully explore what the second and third level consequences were. I got over my skis and I crashed pretty hard and I'm still here. However, I do have a lot more scar tissue than I used to have that was unintentional. So that would be my question is, how do you avoid getting over your skis when you get excited about a particular idea?
So what's the particular answer that you would like to offer me here on base?
I have two. So one is ask for help before you need it. So reach out to friends like you, trusted advisors, coaches, whatever. And then also go back to what made you successful before. So I invested a lot of money with a fairly well-known coach. And this is where some of this go-to-market idea came from. Yep. And I was having dinner with a longtime client of mine who recently got promoted from salesperson to sales manager. And over dinner, they're like, oh yeah, so I only sell this package and most of my colleagues sell, do this, and I find it works way better for me. And you taught me like define what you sell and then just sell that. And I was like, oh, wait a second. So I invested a whole ton of money from this coach to tell me the thing that I was already telling people. So the bones of success are already, and especially for you and I who do this regularly and create content, we've already got the answer. We've just forgotten about it. So before you go external, go back and look at what got you to where you're at and see how that could get you to the next level.
I love that. That's a sort of answer I would say. It's like practice what you preach, because we get so lost in this world by advice mode and helping people and doing whatever. And then we get lost in our own heads as well because we're not doing it. Yeah. So we have to practice what we preach. And my favorite word is congruence. We have to be completely congruent. We're not perfect, but as long as we recognize what we need to do to change to get back to where we were, I think that's awesome. So how can people find out more about you, Hamish?
So I am the world's #1 Google result for Hamish Knox. And if you Google Hamish Sandler or Hamish Calgary, you're absolutely going to find me. I am very easy to find online. LinkedIn, also go.sandler.com/Hamish are all places you can find me. Ultimately, if you Google Hamish Sandler, Hamish Calgary, or Hamish Knox, you're probably going to find something that I've done. And then you can certainly reach out to me by whatever mechanism you find me through. And I'd love to have a conversation with you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've been on my mind to speak to for a while. I just thought, oh yeah, just do it. I think that's the best thing to do it. So thank you once again. You've listened to the Global Sales Leader podcast. My name's Jason Cooper, the sales relationship coach. You can find all of the uploads on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. This will be released fairly soon, maybe before Christmas, with lots of great insights. You can find all of the data and all of the information that you ever need to find on my website, jasoncooper.io, and LinkedIn and everything else. So thank you so much, Hamish, and I'm wishing you a successful year.
Thank you.